Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be talking about which of the Tarkir Dragonstorm precons you should be looking at getting. So with Tarkir Dragonstorm, we're going to be getting 5 new precons. As per usual, there are some absolute bangers here. Now, personally, I have some really strong feelings about some of those, and keep in mind that all of this is going to be my thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. We've just had the 5th one kind of announced and revealed today, so we're going through as fast as possible so that way you guys are able to make your decision if you want to pre-order any of them or be aware of them when they do fully release. So starting out with the Abzan Armor Precon. So this one here is based around toughness matters. Bigger toughness than power, basically. So you got a lot of 0/7s and, 2/10s, that kind of thing. There's a side theme of +1/+1 counters with some sacrificing and reanimation included in here. And a tiny little bit of life gain as well. These are the 2 different commanders. We've got Falithar the Steadfast, who is the kind of one that suits the actual deck the most. So they give every creature you control the ability to assign their combat damage equal to their toughness rather than their power, as well as creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender, which is very relevant. There's a bunch of different creatures in here with some, big toughness that have Defender on them, so we want to make sure that they're able to attack. You also have the option here of sacrificing them. Pay 3 and tap Falithar to sacrifice another creature, and then draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness, then discard equal to their power. So if you're discarding, let's just take Falithar here, 0/5. Obviously you can't sacrifice her with her own ability, but you're going to draw 5 cards, discard 0. You can see why that works really well here. The other command here is Betor, Ancestor's Voice. So they have flying or lifelink, and then at the beginning of your end step, you're going to put a number of +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature you control equal to the amount of life you gained, and then return up to 1 target creature with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. Not as relevant from the deck out of the go, like you want to kind of upgrade a little bit more towards Betor, but once Betor is kind of upgraded towards, I think that they are a stronger commander overall. Both are great commanders though, and kind of suit the deck a little bit. Well, Falithar suits it really well. Betor suits it a little bit. Into the big reprints, we've got some nice reprints in here, but most of the kind of valuable reprints are valuable because of the fact that they haven't been reprinted in a while, or, Mythic when they got reprinted, say like Dragonlord Dromakar. So most of them aren't most of them aren't expensive because of their power. They're just more expensive because they haven't been reprinted in a while. Keep in mind that, Star for Completion is an amazing reprint. Seedborn Muse is amazing. Tree of Redemption is amazing. Shadrix isn't too bad either. So as for my actual thoughts on the deck, this deck has a lot of stuff that's a little bit kind of all over the place. The defenders aren't great. I personally aren't a huge fan of defenders because of the fact that you need to have something that enables them to be able to attack. But the actual toughness matters stuff plays really well, and they obviously play into that. And it's very fun. It's very unique. This is a very, very unique precon. The reprint value, as I said, is kind of half tied into good cards, and then also half tied into just cards that haven't been reprinted in ages. Like there's that Indomitable Ancients here, a 2/10 vanilla creature that just hasn't been reprinted in ages, hence why it's expensive. Overall, can be pretty decent, but definitely going to need to kind of overhaul a lot of the creatures that are involved in it, and a little bit of the other stuff to kind of just move more towards either the toughness matters or more like that Abzan +1/+1 life gain, life loss matters. Into the Team of Raw deck. So this is just dragons. Now, it's just basically a deck around just wanting to cast big dragons and cheat big dragons in and attack with big dragons. It's about as, easy of a deck as you're kind of looking to. The 2 commanders here, we've got Eshki, Team as Raw, who cares about you casting creature spells, either to get a +1 onto her, draw a card, or her dealing damage to each opponent equal to her power, depending on how much power the creature spell that you cast is. And then Ureni here cheats out big dragons. Whenever you attack, you're going to look at the top 8 cards of your library. You get to put a dragon, as long as Ureni is attacking, put a dragon creature onto the battlefield, and then put the rest on the bottom. So, you've got that big kind of dragon cheating out here, and then being able to get some value from casting big mana spells. So the big reprints here are mostly just in kind of big dragony stuff. And if you're starting a dragon deck, it's definitely got like your dragon starter kit for it. It's great stuff that's kind of reprinted in here. Noggy hasn't been reprinted since, or printed since Game Nights, the Game Nights box. Elemental Bomb's great. Temur Ascendancy's great as well. Dragon Tempest is great too. You know, there's some really great kind of reprints in here if you are building a dragon deck. However, the actual deck is kind of weird. Like, it's mono red dragons with this kind of splash of green and blue, and it kind of doesn't go into that ramp mana aspect here. And honestly, it's just a little bit disappointing. It could serve as a great basis though for a Miram deck. Just kind of change the dragons up a bit, add in some better dragons, and in a bit raw ramp, and you're going to be able to go, you know, flying over top of everyone and do some stuff. And I do think that Miram just serves as a better dragon teamer commander than either of these two. Urani's not too bad, but I think that, you know, overall Miram's just kind of better. The next one we have here is the Mardu Surge deck. So this is a Mardu deck that is based around tokens, creating attacking tokens, and then sacrificing those tokens either through your own delayed effects, the ones that are like sacrifice this at the end of combat or at the end of your beginning of your end step, or just sacrifice them yourself with various different things. It is very combat focused. And what I actually loved about them building this deck is that there was some Myriad stuff in here, and Myriad works really well with this kind of thing. And I didn't expect it, and it's just really great and really unique. It makes it a lot better than just kind of, you know, spamming out a whole bunch of 1/1 tokens. You've got, like, you know, Myriad stuff in here that you can kind of make use of as well. And it's definitely the way that if you're upgrading this deck, I suggest you go. Keep in mind that I'm going to make a guide for upgrading all of these that you can check out on my channel as well. So the two commanders here are Zergo Stormrender, who has the ability to mobilize, so creating that 1/1 red warrior attacking token. And then each time a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, you're either going to get to draw a card if it was attacking, or you're going to drain each person for 1 life. An amazing ability. It's not going to make the deck kind of revolve around him, but he's just an incredibly great value engine for the deck. And then the other one here we've got is Nariv Crackling Vanguard. When they come in, going to create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. And then whenever they attack, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of differently named tokens you control. And then during each of your turns that you attack with your commander, you can play those cards. So the reprints in here are good. Like, they're kind of decent ones. They're not great, like crazy. Grand Crescendo is one of the amazing ones. Adeline would be a lot more expensive if she wasn't just reprinted. But overall, some kind of decent kind of value ones. Gix also got a random kind of reprint in here that doesn't super duper suit well. It's going to be good card draw for you, I guess, but it's not amazing, but still a good card to kind of see a reprint of here. So my thoughts, I love this one. I think this was great, especially because, as I said, they kind of lent into that Myriad stuff a little bit there, which just makes it a little bit more unique, a little bit more enjoyable, and definitely I think leaning into that aspect is going to make it more fun for you guys as well. There's some great reprints in here, just not a huge amount of them. And you can easily do some cloning, kind of infinites with this by just making it so that you've got like Breath of Fury and stuff. Or if you're able to like add in a Port Razor and like a Duke Uldar Raven Guard, that's going to be a big infinite there. Just be able to burn the board out as well as just create a huge amount of combat triggers. If you like aggro, this is definitely an amazing deck, and it's going to be the one that I kind of went and picked up first myself. Spoiler for a little bit later. Now, if you guys are liking the content so far, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the video out, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you check out our guides on upgrading all of these, and make sure you check out our guides on the top 10 precons that are going to be available, updated with this set. It's going to be coming out, I don't know when I'll release that video, very soon though. So into the Jeskai Striker deck. So this is a Spellslinger based deck. It's not just Spellslinger, but it's mostly Spellslinger. It's built around this Flurry, which is casting 2 spells each turn. Very, very similar to the Quick Draw deck that came out with OTJ. There's a side theme of creating creature tokens too, like, you know, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 1/1. That kind of stuff. And it also kind of leans into target spells a lot more because, you know, like target player draws 3 cards or that kind of thing because of one of the commanders, which is Shiko and Narset here. They have vigilance and flying, and then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you're going to copy it if it targets a permanent or player, and then you can, you know, choose new targets for that, or you get to draw a card. Great, you know, great reward for casting 2 spells each turn, including opponents' turns. And then the other commander here is Elsha, Threefold Master, that has Monklig, going to create a whole bunch of monks based off how much damage they deal to someone, and then Trample and Prowess. I like her kind of more interesting personally, but Shiko Narset is definitely stronger. These are the kind of reprints in here. Again, similar to Mario 1, there's some good reprints in here, just not a bunch of kind of game-breakingly strong ones and not a bunch of really super-duper valuable ones. They're still good, and it's like a, you know, spell slinger starter kit if you're wanting to kind of start off with it, but they're not kind of, you know, break the bank broken amount of really strong kind of reprints within here. My thoughts, I just don't think there's a huge amount of reprint value similar to the Mardu one. Overall, the deck kind of feels like a worse version of the quick draw precon from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but that's kind of out of the box. With upgrades, you can go pretty bonkers with this, similar to that precon, and I guess it's kind of what would you like to play around with more, because, you know, Jeskai is going to have a slightly different theming to just a straight Izzet deck. Especially because you can lean more into like the prowess Jeskai stuff here. So you can kind of, you know, go more along that lines too. You can also lean heavier into control, heavier into auras. You could easily just go a bunch of different ways with it. I do find it boring out of the box though. I do think the quick draw one is more interesting and potentially like a stronger precon out of the box. But it's still worthwhile and still kind of, you know, decent to pick up. And I'm assuming you're going to enjoy it if you do pick it up. All right, then we got the Sultai Arisen one, and this is, wow. So this is based around self-milling yourself. So taking your cards from the library and putting them straight into the graveyard. And then you've also got a bunch of leaves graveyard triggers. So, you know, whenever a creature or whenever a card leaves the graveyard, do this. So you're going to proc those by either reanimation, so bringing things back from your graveyard back into either your hand or onto the battlefield, or you can exile things from your graveyard as well, you know, just like delve kind of stuff. There's some nice token generation in here too from things leaving your graveyard. The two commanders here are Kota Sig Champion. They made him so much less hot than his, like, you know, main set version for some reason. They made him more zombie-like. So he has the ability that once during each of your turns, you can play a creature card from your graveyard by exiling 3 cards from your graveyard in addition to paying its mana cost. Or, in addition to that, you've also got whenever one or more creatures you control enter from the graveyard or were cast from a graveyard, you're going to put 2+1s on 2 Kotas. Your other commander, which I think is just the much better, like, you know, 100 times better face commander for this deck is Tevel the Balanced Scale here. Has flying. Whenever they attack, mill 3, and then you can return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield. Amazing. Ramp. And then you've also got whenever one or more cards, not even just creatures, leave your graveyard, you're going to create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. Amazing reprints. Absolutely bonkers reprints. There is this huge value in here. I think this Obnix is like $18. You've got Life from the Loam, which is absolutely amazing. For Excellent Reclamation, I kind of wish they did Tortured Existence instead, but as my friend Jack John Jackson explained, very doubtful they'll ever reprint that into a precon. This is like the second best version of that. You know, we've got Dorothy Voidwalker, which is an insane card to see reprinted here. Hedron Crab, Conduit of Worlds, all amazing reprints. Really, really great reprints, even down to the lands. So my thoughts are there's just absolutely bonkers reprint value, not even in regards to how much they are, are cost-wise, but just how much they suit the deck and how strong they are and great they are. They're actually just, you know, it's got to play really well out of the box as well, but with more self-mill and stuff, it's going to even go more bonkers. There's lots of really, really interesting things in here, from the new cards to the reprints and stuff. It's going to be slow to get started when you are using it though, because you've got to fill up that graveyard a bit. But once you get that graveyard filled up and once you get, you know, your commander out here, it's just going to go off the charts. You're going to create so many creature tokens. You're going to do so much stuff. It works really well into the old Sultai stuff as well. It is just absolutely amazing. I really, really love this one. And that's a little bit of a spoiler, obviously, to which one I suggest. So as for the most interesting ones, I think the most interesting ones are the Abzan Armor and the Mardu Surge. Abzan Armor, we haven't really had a Toughness Matters kind of precon. This kind of leans really well into that. And you could build it up a lot better by kind of, you know, building into that more like the just Toughness Matters kind of stuff. The stuff that's more like the tree folk rather than what is actually in here. Get away from the walls, get rid of that defender stuff, add in some really big stuff from that. And then we've got the Mardu Surge one here, which is I love because of the fact that it's got that myriad stuff in it. If it was just those 1/1 tokens, I would be like meh about it, but leaning into the myriad, it's absolutely crazy. It's really, really great, and it's going to be really strong and aggro and just enjoyable, I think. Next, we've got the strongest ones. So these are the strongest ones upgraded, because I think that's more important than the strongest out of the box. So once upgraded, I think all three of these are going to be absolutely strongest out of the box. Once upgraded. So Mardu Surge, as I said, you can easily add Infinite into Jeskai Striker as well to make some really strong decks. Or just overall, it's leaning more into one of their themes, you're going to get a stronger deck that is just going to be absolutely amazing. The Abzan one, I don't think as much, and same with the Team Aurora one. Both of those, don't get me wrong, you could make some really strong decks out of. The Team Aurora one, if you just put Miram in it and replace the commander with Miram, that's instantly going to be, a bunch above. But I think that these ones, honestly, are just going to be potentially the strongest just out once you have upgraded them. Out of the box, though, I think that it's just down to the Mardu Surge and the Sultai Arisen. Both of those are just really, really strong. And I think that, the actual precons themselves have less removal. And these kind of work well into that kind of taking advantage of the fact that other precons don't have as much removal. So my definite suggestions are going to be, the Sultai Arisen one, first of all. It's amazing reprint value. It's the best constructed, one of the best constructed precons they've ever done, and it's just really fun to play and a big threat. You got the Mardu Surge then, that's just, I just love that they lent to the Myriad, and if you want aggro, this is definitely going to be great, and there's just some insane value from combat and some not so bad reprints. The Team Aurora one, I think is good as like a shell for just a better dragon deck. Just add Miram, put him at the helm, go replace some of the other dragons with better dragons and stuff, and you're going to be better. Good against precons though, because it's got flying, and flying is just insane against precons because not a lot of them have reach and removal and stuff. And the first ads definitely need to be more ramp into it. You got the Jeskai Striker one. I do think this is boring. I don't think it's weak, but I do think it's just boring out of the box personally. And I do think that the quick draw one from OTJ is just better. Once upgraded though, it's going to be really nice. You can go a number of different ways. You could take it different ways to that precon as well. I suggest definitely kind of leaning into those, spitting out 1/1 tokens and then taking advantage of those with stuff like Magnus the Red and the Sorcerer's class, for example. And then finally, we've got the Abzan Armor one. And it's a very unique precon. Most reprint value is in the older cards rather than the good cards. And it can be interesting once you lean into the other themes too. If you want to lean into, Baitor, that's great. If you want to lean more into the Toughness Matters stuff, that's great. I wouldn't necessarily lean into the Defenders because at that stage, go play Arcades in Bant. I just think that's better, but I kind of just, think that leaning into one of the other themes, it's just going to make it even more interesting. So my suggestions, if you just want one suggestion, it's the Sultai Arisen one. If you want, a suggestion overall, all of them are decent and you'll find use for them, and everyone's going to find use for, one of them and enjoy one of them particularly, but it depends on how you play the game and what you enjoy in the game, which I think is important to kind of keep in mind. These are all kind of great precons. There's just some that are greater than others. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys as to what you think. Have a great day and goodbye.